Welcome in, baseball fans, to an edition of the Missouri Valley Conference First Pitch. It's actually the first edition, and we stopped by on our first tour, the head coaches, after about 1/5 of the season. We talked to the Valpo Beacons first-year head coach, Brian Schmack. You're 11 games in, coach, and your first year as a Beacon head coach. How's that feel?
A little strange. I mean, you said it right now, and I was like, yeah, I guess that is us. So take a little bit to get used to, but it's fine. Everything's good.
You know, a lot of teams in the Missouri Valley and Midwestern, Northern, whatever kind of depth you want to put on schools like yourself, got to start on the road to start the season in college baseball, like it or not, just to get some good weather games, some quote unquote good weather games. Just so happens that all 11 of your games have been away from home. And normally, coach, the mentality would be, all right, let's just keep our head above water, hang around 500, then we'll make some hay when we get home. You're 5-6 after a buzzsaw at SEMO this weekend. How do you think it's gone so far?
Yeah, first of all, I would question your good weather games. We've played in miserable weather to start the year. I mean, we've had multiple games under 32 degrees. So it's challenging and you deal with it. Like you said, we're from this area, so we expect it. First 5 weekends are usually on the road. So, for us, it's a time to learn about us and play in good environments and start out in that, those environments. So we're on the bus quite a bit. Our guys start to, gel a little bit because of the travel and all that stuff. So it's actually really good for our team. And you're right. You want to hover around that 500 mark to come back to conference and feel pretty good about yourself. So I'm actually pretty happy with the way we've started. And, I think you can tell from the guys there's somewhat of a shift in mentality and, goes without saying they like winning more than losing. So I'm a fan of that.
And you're in the midst of kind of a buzzsaw when it comes to your non-conference schedule or before you get home anyway, your road schedule, I should say, with SEMO, and then the games coming up with Notre Dame and also Murray State. Those guys are off to a good start too. So what do you think that the SEMO series, which is a very good team, taught you about your guys and maybe that they learned of themselves?
Resiliency was one big one. I mean, the weather conditions weren't perfect, and it's an extremely offensive ball club, and the wind was, howling out to right field, and there were some home runs and balls in play that, probably wouldn't have been out on normal days, but, you got to learn to deal with that. And I think our guys did really well. Specifically Jake Miller was great. I mean, his numbers, you look at the box score and it's not great at all, but I thought he pitched tremendously. And for him to be able to brush that off and think of the positives out of that outing, I think is going to be huge for him moving down the road. So, we want to play those challenging teams because obviously the Missouri Valley is challenging. I mean, look what they're doing. You mentioned, the conference RPI is 5 overall, and that doesn't mean it gets easier. So we want to be able to prepare ourselves for when conference play starts.
And two guys I was really impressed with last couple of years anyway, Roadhouse and Tiemann, two guys that pitched really big innings for you guys in the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. John Tiemann, Easton Roadhouse, both gone now. So is it easy, difficult, somewhere in between it's one thing to go out and do it on the mound, but to lead when you guys aren't on the field, who's taking the reins there for your pitching staff? Because I feel like both those guys were tailor-made for that role over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Huge losses, like you said, on the field and off the field. And on the field especially, they had to pitch quite a bit. Our starters didn't really give us a lot of depth last year, so those guys stepped into those types of roles. But I think our starters are become the leaders, to be honest, and a little bit cliched, but Terzinski and Fields have really stepped forward. Nathan Chasey out of the bullpen has been a guy that we've relied on to deliver the message to the rest of the guys on the staff. So our starters have done better, which gives them a little bit more clout, I think, and they feel better about themselves, obviously, so now they're more willing to speak up, and when it gets to the bullpen and for those guys, I think Chasey's been the guy that's really stepped forward.
I feel like last year you had a lot of swing and miss guys in your bullpen, and even in the starting rotation for guys that got starts, because you do have a lot of guys coming back that have starting experience. The key for those guys, I thought last year going to this, would be throwing more strikes. How's that going for the first 11 games?
It's actually been really good. I think we walked 10 guys in that second game, which we really haven't done, but that's been the struggle for us is we do have this swing and miss stuff, but we can't have the starters and they were going 90, 95 pitches and giving us 4 innings. So we need a little bit more early contact, and Jake was doing that. Trent was doing that. Fields has been doing that. This weekend was a little bit different, but for us, it's just being more in the strike zone. And like I tell our guys, we throw more strikes, the strikeouts will come. So I think a lot of guys were trying to strike out guys on 0-0, and it just doesn't work that way. So we've focused on just attacking more and being in the strike zone, and hopefully the strikeouts come.
And this past weekend against SEMO, notwithstanding, Trzynski and Fields had been what you'd wanted them to be leading off a weekend series, hadn't they?
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, the biggest issue we had was depth, and our bullpen got taxed big time last year because, like I said, we were going 4+ on the mound. And with a 4-game weekend last year, that wasn't a good recipe for success. So, we've been getting 5 to 6 innings out of a lot of those guys, and it just shortens the game for us. And that's where our strength will be. So it's been good to see those guys make that change and get us off to a good start.
Offensively, it was plain to see that Caleb Hannes and Kyle Schmack would be your leaders offensively. But I've really liked what Brady Renfro has done, lengthening out the lineup a little bit. Talk about him just a little bit, maybe one more guy that you got your eye on to make that top 9 tougher from top to bottom.
Yeah, so Brady, he's been good. I mean, he's sometimes a little bit of a swing and miss guy, but he's got that power potential. I think he's a perfect 4-hole guy, and he can clean up a lot of the, clean the bases out, I guess, if those guys are getting on ahead of him. So he's been a good surprise. He was banged up a little bit last year. He's a little bit more healthy now. So, looking for him to take off again. And I think a guy extending that lineup is Alex Thurston's been doing really, really well. I mean, went out, had a good summer, built a lot of confidence, and, starting to give us a little bit of that depth. So, and obviously with Caleb and Kyle, those guys have been kind of setting the table a little bit. Caleb's just as steady as it gets. I mean, another 6 hits this weekend, and it's not always pretty, but hitters hit, and for him to be on for Kyle, who's been swinging it well and giving us a little more of that power. And then obviously Brady's been, I think he's got 4 or 5 home runs right now too. So, that's been a nice combo for us, and we want to extend that. And I think we're better at that. I think we've had some holes in the past where maybe 6 through 9 got a little bit dicey, but we're trying to extend that. And it's been a lot better this year. So we're excited about that.
And finally, before we let you go, I want to talk about your closer, Bobby Nowak. To get a guy that has swing and miss stuff, I mean, real swing and miss stuff down at the end. He's already got 4 saves for you guys, pitching an odd save situation, that doubleheader against SEMO. But talk about him and the confidence you have in him when you have a lead going on the 9th inning.
Yeah, it's one of those where he comes in the game and you feel like it's over, and I think his mentality is what really sells it. He's not intimidated by any situation. He actually thrives on it. So those guys are invaluable because oftentimes in college baseball, I think momentum plays a big factor into it. But he comes in and he just attacks hitters, and his stuff is pretty good too, which helps. And I think he's a perfect candidate for that closer role. So excited to see how he finishes up this season.
Well, hang in there on the road, Skip. You'll be home soon, and stay warm until then, all right?
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Okay, keep watching, baseball fans. The Missouri Valley Conference. Next week, we will check in with Wes Carroll from Evansville. We'll talk about what they did in the Big Easy recently as the MVC first pitch rolls on. Stay tuned.